School District Board of Directors with the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome our guests tonight. And I will entertain a motion for the agenda.
I'll make the motion, but with corrections.
You'd like to modify the
I
agenda?
would like to modify the
Okay.
agenda. I would like to have under C1, required approvals, item C1-7 pulled for further discussion.
Okay.
And made its own line item, so
Would you like that to go to item C2, Ken?
yes.
Okay.
And then the other one was just a comment or a question on the June 24th meeting during the proposed budget timeline. At this meeting, we were supposed to have preliminary discussion on the budget, and I noticed it wasn't on the agenda. Is that just going to be out to the next meeting to set us off? Is everything on that agenda going to be one meeting off now? And we're looking at the last meeting in August to approve the budget?
I don't think I'm following your question. You know
Well-
what's being asked?
So, this is on, okay. No, the dates aren't being pushed forward one meeting. The preliminary budget will be presented at the next meeting,
At
so
the
August 12th.
That's what-
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Were you thinking
So-
we were off one meeting, Ken?
No, at tonight's meeting, according to the timeline, we were supposed to have preliminary discussion with the, or if you go back on the June 24th meeting and you look at the timeline,
I must have missed that, sorry. I think I got my wires crossed because the both dates had preliminary budget on them.
I'm just looking at the board calendar,
Mhm.
which is, that's what I always go by when I'm setting up that. We didn't have
The
anything
meeting.
for a budget hearing for this meeting.
Okay.
Was it in the
That's-
minutes of that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's
It
in
was
the
discussed?
minutes. It's in the minutes and the proposed budget that was proposed to us at that
Were you
time
just
with
one
the
meeting
timeline.
ahead on that?
Yeah, I think
Or
I
you
might have
thought-
been.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I
based
was
on-
going also kind of based on last year's rough dates, which I know were off a little bit from what normally happens, just with the transition, so
Gotcha.
that might have been also why.
Okay.
So based on the board policy and the calendar we approved, it was August 12th would be our next budget hearing. And that's actually going to be a 6 PM special
Yes.
meeting. And then approval at the following meeting.
Yes.
Do you see any issue with that?
No, I wish we would have had let me a little more time or another time to review the budget beforehand. Or if I could get a full copy of the budget beforehand too.
Well, we
Mhm.
definitely
Before
could have.
that.
So when we're setting up our calendar, that would be the time to bring that up.
Yes, because
Yeah.
I thought that's what we were going to do, according to that timeline that was presented to us on the 24th, what we'd be doing.
Okay. So did that have anything to do with agenda, Ken, or?
I'm on the June 24th meeting now, under administrative, under C4, preliminary budget. And it was provided to us, the preliminary budget. And you go down that, and you go the budget timeline. May, June budget preparation, June 24th, board meeting preliminary budget. July 10th, preliminary budget available. July 22nd, board meeting review proposed budget.
Gotcha. So
So that's what,
as far as your motion on the agenda, though, is that something you're,
no, I
Want
was
to
just,
add?
no, I don't want to add it to it. I was just wondering if we're still going to have that in the future meeting,
gotcha.
since we didn't have it tonight.
So right now, your motion
Because,
was to remove item C17
yes,
and pull it as a separate item C2.
yes, And my other one was just a question on the
Okay.
budget for the timing.
Anything else?
No.
Any further discussion on that?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's been a second by Director Garza. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. So we can go ahead and move forward before we refresh our screens with that change. Oh, we're ready to refresh now, I hear. Okay, next item, B1, public comment. Do we have any requests? Okay. And item B2, board member discussion. So Director Stevenson was not able to be here tonight. The first item and the third item, so the first item is her normal legislative report. The third item, she had some changes she wanted to propose, but since she's not here, she's just going to bring them to the next board meeting. That way she can explain her reasoning for the proposed changes to our survey that we do for our annual self-evaluation. So the only item on here really to discuss tonight is the facilities discussion, and this is again just if the board has new information they'd like to talk about. We do have a special meeting coming up in August where we're going to have a lengthy discussion about facilities. Is there anything tonight that the board wanted to bring up?
No.
Okay. And it looks like our student rep's not here tonight, so we will not have a student rep report. Do we have, you guys aware of that? Okay. All right, we'll move on to item C1 then. Required approvals. I'll entertain a motion.
I motion we approve the required approvals.
Been a motion by Director Garza to approve,
I'll second that.
second by Director Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. We'll move on then to item C2 that was pulled from required approvals, technology Chromebook bid. You had some questions on that, Director Johnson?
Yes. I have no problem with the purchase. But I did notice that we are surplusing some Chromebooks from previous. And I remember we had discussion about what to do with those Chromebooks in the past, possibly about letting the outgoing seniors be able to purchase them and stuff. I noticed on July 16th, there was an email sent to all district personnel stating there was 1,741 Dell 11 Chromebooks that were going for surplus with a minimum bid of $30 each. My understanding is, I
Did you
think,
get that email?
I don't recall.
I didn't get the email.
no, you didn't get it, but district personnel did, and that's where I seen it.
Oh,
Couple of questions I have is, to surplus property, does the board need to approve that first before it could go for sale?
Yeah, well, with the district operating policy that we have in our policy, I believe it goes to staff. I can't remember the email or the board policy off the top of my head, but
The district operating policy actually has board approval at the very end of the process, which was interesting to me. But so we were following that process that's outlined in the policy, or I guess it's the procedure for the surplus policy, and it does have board approval on there, but it's letter F. I believe
Okay.
it's letter F.
Okay, and then I'm just going to throw an RCW out here so you could check on it further to make sure we're following that guideline, because I think it also states that we're supposed to make these available to other districts first.
Yes.
And even the students.
Yeah.
Available to students, and that's RCW 28A 335.180.
Let me get up my notes.
So I just want to make sure we're following
Did you get
the
it?
proper procedures to surplus the property.
Okay.
Because I know it's public property
Mhm.
to start with, and
Dr.
I know
Rubio,
there,
sorry. was wondering if you know the district operating policy
It's
applies to this.
6881.
681.
Yeah, and maybe we need to look
Okay.
at that RCW and reference it against the procedure, and maybe we
Against the
need the procedure
policy.
updated.
What was
Okay.
the number that you just said, Ken?
RCW 28A 335.180.
Is referenced in the actual policy. And the policy was last revised in 2017. I wonder if there's been any changes since then. Of course,
And
procedure, it was updated at the same time.
Yeah, and offering it to other school districts. Offering the property to other school districts is a part of that procedure. It's just, I think, the next step down or 2 steps down in the procedure outlined.
Okay, I noticed that email that was sent out to all district employees, and nothing else there to show us that. And like I said, my next question was, does the board have to approve the property surplus first before we actually sell it?
Well, like Jeanette had mentioned, it was towards the end, so I'm assuming that's when it's gonna go out to like third-party companies who are wanting to do the IT buyback kind of offerings. I believe that's when we would come to the board and say if it's okay to surplus the rest of it to them and go from there. Because we have our process where we go and get multiple companies to do the buybacks. It's kind of like how we do when we go out to state bid for major contracts for IT stuff. We do the same thing when it comes to the IT buybacks. We go see who gives us the best price, and then from there we'll seek your guys' approval to allow us to sell it to them.
Okay, and I know last year when the discussion of purchasing Chromebooks come up, we discussed about possibly seeing if the kids could purchase these back. Has that progressed any further on how that could happen? Or if that was one of the choices looked at or options? this time?
It's something we're still looking into. We just have to figure out how would we get that information out to the students during the summertime, because that's when we actually go through and do the surplusing, is during the summer. So we would have to, I guess, try to come up with a procedure at the end of the school year saying, hey, these are coming out of end of life, and to see if they would like to buy them. But it has to be, we would have to come up with some kind of communication before school is out for these seniors to buy them for like their first or second year of college. So,
Okay.
but we'll definitely get that going.
Okay, and I noticed it's gonna be pretty close to 2,000 that you're surplusing, and you're only purchasing about 1,000 computers now, and that's gonna be
Well,
plenty.
so if you remember last year, we had
Yes.
we had purchased 800, around 800, I believe it was 800 Chromebooks last year. Well, we still have those. We didn't really surplus them at all. The 800 that we removed and got the other 800 to replace,
Okay,
we still had them in our inventory in our IT warehouse. So when we're taking out, I think our actual number is 1,044, and then we're adding those 800 on top of that.
On top of that.
So that's why.
okay,
So that's why that number is so high. But yeah, so 1,200 should cover the influx of students that are coming in to those grade levels, plus also restocking the 6th grade classrooms with their Chrome cards.
okay,
So,
great,
okay.
thank you.
All right, thanks.
I have a question for you, Kenny. You probably are knowledgeable on this. At what point is property considered to be surplus, where you apply that term to it?
When it's, I guess, no further needed by the district or the. for
So
the
when you
purpose of the-
declare it surplus, then there's different processes that we go through. I mean, when I read that district operating policy, just because the board approval is last, I didn't feel like that was a timeline, though. Like, that's chronologically how it would happen. That's just my interpretation of it, but that's a district operating policy. When I go to just board policy, it just states, the superintendent shall not cause or allow any person to acquire, encumber, or dispose of real property without approval of the board. Doesn't
Yeah.
say at what point
At
we
what
would do
point.
that. So That's one thing as a board, we might want to be more specific with that. But I just had this memory that it becomes surplus at some point, right? So maybe there's some things that the district does, maybe internally, maybe it's not surplus yet if you're asking if the district employees want to purchase it,
Mhm.
or maybe it is already surplus. I don't know the answer to that. I was wondering if maybe you did. That's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, it just surprised me when I seen the email saying that it was out for surplus, and I didn't remember seeing anything come across saying that we surplus
So the
property yet.
email said it was surplused already.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Oh, in fact, I got a copy of it here.
Yeah, I was curious more about the legal term of the surplus.
It just says the school district is surplusing Dell Chromebook 11. And it has a list of them. And then it has a list of, here's the quantity of each model, and then it lists each one, and the number of them, and the minimum bid per unit.
I think these are good questions that I, as one board member, would like to be educated on when it truly becomes surplus. And I think the RCW probably speaks to that, so I'm gonna study that.
I know dealing with the city, when we had property that come up with surplus, and it may have been old equipment that wasn't used for years, but it still had to come by the council in order to declare it surplus before we could even put it up for sale.
Right, yeah, makes sense. Okay, so what would the board like for follow-up action on this, so that this isn't just something that we talk about
So-
again next year?
For the subject on it, it was originally the purchase of the current Chromebooks. I have no problem with that, and in fact, I'll make the motion to approve the purchase for the Chromebooks.
Okay.
Then for further discussion, or for the others, I'd just like to make sure that all procedures are followed up on correctly, to make sure, just to reassure us that they're being followed properly too.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know at our next board
What they
meeting,
are.
kind of just an understanding for me of when something gets declared surplus, what that actually means, how it becomes considered surplus by the state, and then also maybe just a little clarification on the district operating policy of when the district thinks it's a appropriate time to get the board to approve surplus property based on the RCW. We do that.
Okay.
Okay, that sound good?
Yes.
All right, so there's a motion on the table to
I'll
approve.
second the motion to approve.
There's a second to approve the technology Chromebook bid. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Next is superintendent informational items, and the only thing in this is our June 2019 financial report. Any questions for clarification on that? Okay. Then we will move on to item D1. Assurance of organizational performance. These are board response to monitoring reports. We'll start with EL6. There were 4 responses, and all 4 found that superintendent was in compliance. There were no comments that I could see either. Moving on to EL7. 4 responses as well. And all responses were the superintendent was in compliance. And no comments. EO14. 4 responses. All 4 found in compliance. There's 1 comment. Thank you for taking the steps to help the district make progress toward balance. The board like that comment to stay in the comment section of the monitoring response document?
Yeah.
All right. And then GP13. There were also 4 responses. GP13 speaks to director districts. Question 1 says, "The Board of Directors, with the assistance of the administration, the Educational Service District, and the State Redistricting Commission, will develop a plan of proposed director districts within 8 months of any of the following events: receipt of federal decennial census data, consolidation of the district with one or more other districts, transfer of territory to or from the district, annexation of territory to or from the district, or approval by a majority of the district's voters of a proposal to divide the district into director districts." 3 found in compliance, that the board was in compliance with this. 1 found that they're in compliance with an exception. It says, "Although I voted to wait for a director district boundary renovation, I feel I was not in compliance after reading approval by a majority of the district's voters of a proposal to divide the district into director districts. We wait for this. I now feel this should have been done in a more timely manner since it was voter approved." Okay. So that was one comment. Was that any of the board members that are here? Okay. Is there any board members that would change their vote on that, based on that?
No.
My feeling would be that it does say that develop a plan, and a plan was developed.
We're gonna wait for the census data, so.
And
Yeah.
it was voter approved, and it will be at the next cycle, election cycle.
Yeah.
It will
And-
change.
With 8 months, it's still October before that 8 months is up, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So then overall, in compliance, and any desire for the board to keep the comment? No?
I
Okay.
don't think it's-
In order to maintain its commitment to excellence and governance, to the provisions of this policy, and to improve its own performance, the board commits to the following actions. There were 2 comments, or 2 responses here. The first response, the board will adhere to this policy following the results of the next census. And the second comment, be diligent and transparent in our dealings with the voter districts. Would we like to keep one or both of those responses
Make both of them more.
as our commitments? Okay, what do you
They're both-
suggest?
Both good. They can both stay.
Both? Do you have a suggestion of how you'd like to word it, or keep them
I
separate?
would
Or
just add 2 at the end of 1, just so it's one comment.
Okay. So the board will adhere to this policy following the results of the next census, and be diligent and transparent in our dealings with the voter districts. That
Yeah.
be worded well that way? Ken, you good with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I didn't even realize, but are we missing our policy review section? Well, I mean, it's not here, even though there's no policies to review. It's missing. I guess I didn't catch it when I was going over this. There are no policies to review tonight, but,
Yes, and we will be, I know we'll be reviewing EL7 next time, which I will probably have a few changes to see if we can make it, the title align with the policy itself.
okay, policy review will definitely be there as an agenda item next time. Next item is executive session. The board will recess into executive session to discuss potential real estate purchase or lease. This will be for 30 minutes, and no action will be taken following the executive session. We'll take a recess here for about 3 minutes, and plan on coming out, well, we'll just say, we'll go in at 7:30, come out at 8. Sound good? Okay.